Spock says, friends, we are gathered here today. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today because Jim Kirk is probably dead.
Mm-hmm.
And now here's Ali Ashmead from the Humanist Trek podcast to spit some mad bars.
Rest in peace.
Perhaps I could use this as an excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
I'm Captain James Kirk.
Mr. Spock.
Your move, Captain. Jim Kirk of the Enterprise.
What's going on?
I'm James Kirk. These people are my friends and my shipmates. Leave my crew alone.
Out of the question.
How about that?
James Kirk.
It fits like a glove, Captain.
Oh, the bonehead ideas.
Gentlemen, I'm Captain James Kirk. Get out of my chair. Get out of it now.
My greetings and felicitations, Captain. So good of you and your officers to, drop in. Absolutely smashing.
Jolon True, and welcome to Humanist Trek. It's a Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. I'm Sarah Ray.
And I'm Ali Ashmead.
And Happy New Year!
Happy New Year! Woo!
I don't have one of them little blower things, you know? The noise makers.
Yeah, I know. I know what you mean. Yeah.
No, that sounded like a cat getting molested.
No.
Kitty's not pet. Mom, Kitty's being a dildo.
Well, then I know a certain kitty who's sleeping with mommy tonight.
What?
So I'm going to be a little serious in the opening to this episode this week because this is a meme that we all share every year, and I want to address it.
What meme is that?
It is the Captain Picard, don't just wish for a great 2024, make it so. And that's great if you are in a position to just make a great year for yourself.
Yeah.
But I want to acknowledge that, like, that is kind of tone deaf to the people who are out there struggling, who can't just, it's just if you just choose to be happy and then everything's fine.
Right.
Not exactly.
No.
Life's hard.
It's not that simple. Yeah.
Yeah. So people are struggling. And I just want to acknowledge that it's like, I get it. I get you. And it's not just that easy.
Yeah. I don't say those cliche things anymore. Like, well, you should just blah, blah, blah. That is, you're right. Tone deaf. It's being dismissive of somebody's situation and it makes them feel like crap. And so I don't even say that shit anymore.
I should have run some statistics to see like how many events we did in 2023. And because we went and did some without you too.
Oh, yeah.
We went to
American Atheist.
Oh, man.
And you went to Nebraska.
Mm-hmm. Nebraska was the one I was thinking of.
And you went to American Atheist without me because I didn't go there.
Yeah.
Something in June. Retromania.
And then this most recent one.
Galacticon. 5? Yeah, we did 5 events. 6 if you count the cruise, which I didn't know anything about the what to do with the cruise. So I technically didn't do very much, but hand out cards.
So I'm not a New Year's resolution person, but I think we should strive to best that by one. Let's find one more thing to do in the new year.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I had a chunk taken out of me. I'm starting off the new year, right? So I had this cyst on my shoulder blade. I've had it for like over 10 years.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's just one little, it's not that big. It was like 2 centimeters.
Uh-huh.
And, I just felt like I should get it out. One of my coworkers had to do something at the dermatology and it got me thinking, I need to get this done. So I made an appointment months ago. Did you know that there is a shortage of lidocaine?
What?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So when I made the appointment, they're like, well, there's a shortage of lidocaine. I'm like, excuse me? I need that. If you're going to cut this thing off me, I need that. So she's like, yeah, but they're rationing it. So they can only do a certain amount of surgeries that require lidocaine a week. So I had to wait like 3 months to get this done.
Jesus. What is this? The NHS?
No, I don't know why. I forget. It's just a supply chain.
Yeah, no, that's fucking crazy.
And so I'm like, yeah.
I could have taken care of that for you.
No.
I got knives. No big deal.
No.
So talk to me about the doctor who performed this procedure. More McCoy or more Mbenga?
He was definitely Mbenga. I would not want McCoy to fucking touch me.
He didn't come in the room with a bottle of bourbon.
A bottle of the True. That would have been good, though.
Yeah.
No, he didn't walk in with a bottle of the True and say, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Well, I enjoyed, at your expense, all of the social media postings about Allie's brain and reconnecting the nerves one by one.
Yep. So I took a photo of myself in the gown because they give me a gown, and I posted it on Facebook saying I was having my brain rewired, and it didn't work. So yeah, it was fun.
Brain, what is brain?
Okay, how do we get from that to McCoy's a shit doctor on the next episode of Star Trek, the original series? Because he kind of was.
Because, it's a good thing we didn't need him in this episode. Well, actually, we did need him in this episode. He actually figured out the problem pretty quickly, which is very uncharacteristic for McCoy.
All right, well, let's get into Star Trek, the original series, Season 3, Episode 9, The Tholian Web.
Sir, contact with an object. It's moving toward us. No visual contact yet.
Deflectors, full intensity.
Mr. Sulu, yes, Captain. Anything on your scanners? It's coming at light speed.
Collision course. Visual contact.
Anything, over?
All wavelengths dominated by ionization effects, sir.
All engines full stop.
The Defiant disappeared without a trace 3 weeks ago in uncharted space, and the Enterprise is out here looking for it.
Boy, this is familiar. Deja vu. Everybody on the bridge is looking all serious, like super serious.
It's like bad news all the way down.
Mm-hmm.
Spock's instruments indicate that space itself is breaking apart.
I want to know what that looks like on a sensor. Like, how in the world can you tell that?
The warp engines are losing power fast, and suddenly Chekhov has an object dead ahead, except that it doesn't read on their sensors at all. So no mass, no radiation, and yet there on the screen is the Defiant,
right,
glowing an eerie green color, quite like the green color of that hand that reached out and grabbed the Enterprise in that one episode.
Deja vu.
Uhura's been trying to call, but there's no answer.
Thank you for calling the Defiant. No one is available to take your call. Please leave a message, and someone will return your call as soon as possible. Beep.
So they get into transporter range, and KSM plus Chekhov beam over onto the Defiance bridge, aka the Enterprise bridge playset, with the lights off.
Right. This might be like the second or third time where they actually wore something different.
Yes.
Than their normal uniforms. So they actually wore, they actually look like space people.
Right.
And they wore some type of protective uniform.
This was an upgrade to the last time we saw these EV suits was in The Naked Time.
Mm-hmm.
Remember those? They were like a red plastic thing.
That's one of the episodes I'm talking about.
They could the air could go right up in it.
At least they, they took a leaf from the actual astronauts book and had helmets.
Like proper helmets.
Right,
yeah.
right.
These helmets also each have a nameplate on them, which led me to wonder. There's 400 crew people, give or take the ones that die each week. Is there a helmet for every person with their nameplate on it somewhere?
I'm sure not. I mean, why would they do that?
Right? Why wouldn't we all just use a helmet? And do we need the nameplate on camera to know that's Kirk and that's Spock and that's Chekhov or whatever?
Don't know.
I don't know. I just want to see a room on the Enterprise that's just like walls in the IKEA cubbies with each one with a helmet in it, floor to ceiling.
Speaking of, okay, a tangent. Have you seen the show? I think it's on Netflix. Stars on Mars.
No, I have not. I do not have Netflix.
Oh, okay. So it's hosted by William Shatner. It's a reality show.
Uh-huh.
And they've put these celebrities out in what looks like the desert, but they've changed the lighting and they've made it look like Mars. And when you said cubby holes, because when they take off their helmets, they literally have like
an IKEA shelf. That's amazing.
Put their stuff. I only watched one episode. I'm like, God, this is stupid, but I have to watch.
I remember the premise of it. I remember some promotion about it ahead of time or something. But yeah,
Lance Armstrong is there. A couple of football players. I think Bruce Willis and Demi Moore's kids, all kinds of...
See, that just doesn't sound interesting to me.
All kinds of... well, when you get a bunch of celebrities together, and it's funny.
Drama ensues.
It's very funny.
And,
there was a comedian, I forget her name, and then there's Adam Rippon, the skater, and somebody from Vanderpump Rules, which I don't watch.
Nope. Me neither.
And just some other people. Oh, the guy from Superbad, McLovin.
Okay.
The guy who played McLovin. Just, just all kinds of random celebrities put into a little sleeping room together, and they have to do tasks. In the middle of the night, something goes off. Warning.
Oh, my God.
And the lead crew person, they designate one every 2 days, has to go to the control room and tell people what to do because they have to go outside and fix something. It's interesting. It's really cool.
Well, I lament not having Netflix anymore because Star Trek Prodigy is moved to Netflix.
I haven't seen it yet.
And the second season comes out in 2024.
Nice.
And I won't be able to watch it.
You'll have it by 2024. I wish I could share mine with you and not get in trouble.
Right. Well, that's how we don't have it anymore.
Damn it.
Yeah, fucking people locking down their cable. You remember that back in the day? Cable splitter, and you and your neighbor could share cable.
I did not have cable growing up, so
okay. We had cable like the week that the Disney Channel was free or whatever. That was the kind of cable we had.
I just had an antenna. I was poor. I was real poor.
Also, speaking of the naked time, on the bridge of the Defiant, we find a couple crew people on the ground nearby, both dead, but one was clearly strangling the other. And Kirk's like, fuck, not this naked time shit again.
Chekhov thinks maybe that's a mutiny. Has there ever been a mutiny on the Enterprise?
I feel like we've had that conversation before.
And I don't... Okay.
And it might have been in the naked time. I don't know.
That was a complete mutiny. That was a mutiny.
Yeah. So the captain's neck has been broken, and it's possible that the mutineers are still on board, so Kirk calls over for a security detail. Despite the ship being functional, Spock detects no life aboard, so Kirk calls off the red shirts, forget it, we don't need a security detail. And then they split up to investigate, and if watching Scooby-Doo as a child has taught me anything, that's a terrible idea.
Or any horror movie.
Right.
Don't split up. Chekhov goes to engineering. Everybody's dead. And then he, for some reason, gets a little bit dizzy. And they do that one shot that they started to do in, I think, a previous episode where it's that POV shot where it looks like there's a GoPro strapped to Chekhov. And he kind of gets a little dizzy. He reports back to Kirk that everybody's dead in engineering.
McCoy finds more of the same in sickbay, and this wasn't spoken, but we see a blue shirt strapped down to a bio bed. So there's some real sketchy shit going on here.
Yeah.
Kirk calls McCoy and asks what killed these people, and McCoy's like, well, they killed each other. And Kirk's like, this really is some naked time shit. Let's get the fuck out of here.
Well, Kirk's already thinking, hey, didn't we have that naked time thing back? Could a disease have affected the
I've
crew?
seen this episode before.
Right. Could this be another naked time disease? But McCoy's like...
No, we don't revisit that until Next Generation.
But McCoy's like, according to the ship's log, the doctors, the medical people didn't even know what was happening. So he's going to get the readings and just analyze them later.
But in the hallway, he finds a crew person on the ground and at about 50% transparency. And sure enough, he puts his hand in and it goes right through him.
And the guy's like, hey, wait, you're putting your hand in me.
Consent, fucker.
I know, right? But he's like, what the devil?
Yeah, in the doctor's office, his hand goes through a clipboard too. So McCoy's like, the ship is dissolving. Cut to the Enterprise bridge where now we see the ship sort of fading in and out in parts, and Scotty calls down to the transporter room, but the transporters are down apparently. So Scotty has to go down and TCB, leaving Sulu in charge. On the Defiant, we learn that a comparison of the two ships' sensor readings indicates that whatever happened to the Defiant might also be happening to the Enterprise. So it's time to get out of here, and Kirk calls up Scotty, but the transporters are still out.
I love it when Kirk calls up the transporter. Yes. Are you thinking the same thing? So
I thought this was just my dirty mind.
No. Okay. So Scotty's standing at the transporter, and then Captain calls, and then this other dude's head pops up from underneath
under the table
somewhere and looking all wild-eyed because they haven't fixed it yet. Kirk is asking to be beamed back over, and they're like, well, I can't, at least not all at once. So on the Defiant, they had to decide who was going to go first.
He had to Rochambeau for it. So Kirk volunteers to stay and let Spock, McCoy, and Chekhov go in on the first round.
But Spock tries to, he's like, I'll do it. No, but Kirk insists that he'll do it.
So it takes a lot of switch flicking, but eventually Scotty pulls them through.
And Scotty has this oh shit look on his face when, you know how like when you're just kind of like doing stuff with your eyes closed? That's the look he had on his face.
Hoping that it works?
Yes, yeah.
Well, when he tries to beam Kirk back, though, he just cannot do it. Meanwhile, Chekhov walks over to this view screen on the wall and turns it in, and we see the Defiant fade to stars. And Chekhov's like, oh, shit. Scotty's underneath the transporter console now, but it's no use. The Defiant is gone, and so is the captain. Dun, dun, dun. On the bridge, we get a whole lot of Spock-splaining about his multiverse theory. And this was necessary because it's just total bullshit that they made up, right?
And also they arrived at it very quickly. So to move the story along, they had to do all this stuff. He's talking to the computer and he's having the computer compute the next spatial interface, which is, I guess, when they're fading in and out. And it's going to be 2 hours and 12 minutes.
So this all weak sauce story mechanic, because if there are an infinite number of universes that can all connect at a one point in time and space or whatever.
And overlap and...
Right. Then, how would you know which universe you're grabbing from? And it creates more questions than it answers.
But he was trying to explain it to Chekhov. Chekhov was not getting it either. He didn't understand.
So the fabric of space here is just really weak, and any power that they might use could fuck everything up and not only lose the captain, but also be trapped here too.
As Spock is explaining this to Chekhov, we can see kind of Chekhov, something's happening to him. He's kind of faltering and wincing a little bit as he's sitting in his seat, but nobody notices at that moment.
But then he goes full naked time and starts swinging, jumps out of his seat, starts throwing fists at Spock. Knocks over his chair, knocks over Sulu, chair and all. And finally, Scotty, McCoy, and Sulu have to like hold him down while Spock grabs his face.
Yeah.
And screams at him. But Chekhov is nutters and Spock has to neck pinch him.
Finally, I think McCoy comes in. What happened? And McCoy's asking all the right questions that a doctor should ask, I guess. And he's like, did you notice anything about his behavior before that? And Sulu said that he had pain. But he seems to be angry. Not frightened or anything, but just fucking pissed.
So now it seems like whatever it was that naked timed the Defiant is definitely on the Enterprise, and it's probably communicable. Do the Enterprise crew mask up and close all the restaurants? No, they do not, because they're not liberal cucks.
But I think it's interesting, though, that they chose to highlight the suit to wear, but they still got it.
Right.
This new improved, super protective suit.
Yeah.
And they still got it, which I guess was a choice that they made to show that this thing was not transmitted from person to person. It was something in space.
Right. As Spock explains why they can't move away from this position if they have any hope of bringing Kirk back, McCoy starts questioning like whether they can even hold out hope for Kirk at all at this point.
Right. So he was like, are you sure Jim's alive? And always the whole second guessing Spock's decision, no matter what.
That is the theme of this episode, as usual.
Yeah. So are you sure? So he was of the consensus of let's just get the fuck out of here. Jim's dead.
Let's cut our losses before we get too fucked.
And Spock was no. He thinks that Jim is alive, and if there was a chance to recover him, he was going to do it.
Well, Spock has mapped this out, right? He's done all the calculations. The next interphase is going to be in about 2 hours. but the EV suit will only have like 3.5 hours of oxygen left.
Mhm.
So like if we miss this one, there definitely won't be a Kirk
Right.
to go back for on a second try. And then to make matters even worse, Sulu's got a bogey on an intercept course.
It's some type of weird, like a star shape with the 3 prongs kind of ship that they see on their view screen, and then they go to red alert.
So this ship like holds a position 90,000 kilometers from the Enterprise, and Uhura's phone rings, and it's the alien on screen.
This was so weak. This was a weak alien. But I don't know what it looked like before they remastered, so maybe it looks better. But it was like this red hexagonal looking thing with 2 eyes.
Nope, there's not one of the alien itself. There's a comparison between like the Defiant,
What it was before.
the Tholian ship,
Mm-hmm.
the Enterprise inside the web looked very different. This is something we should talk about because I remembered the lines being more red.
I remember them being yellow.
The yellow is the remastered.
Okay.
So
maybe
here,
I'm thinking, you know what I'm
'cause
thinking
these
of?
were more-
I'm thinking of Q. I'm thinking of that episode
Yes.
in TNG with Q.
Yeah.
And
See, these were more red to start with. Like there's some yellow in there, but it was more of this reddish color. This is and I don't know if that's a remastered screenshot or an original. Did they fuck it up in the remaster?
No, it was just, it looked so, it was just, I was like, this is a shit alien. Yeah, it was like a geometric shape with 2 eyes and a weird colored dark background.
Right. This is Commander Luskin, voiced by Barbara Babcock, who we have seen before.
Oh, yeah.
On Star Trek, the original series.
The Armageddon, what was it called?
A Taste of Armageddon?
A Taste of Armageddon.
Maya 3,
Mm-hmm.
I think, was from that one. Yep. She also played Trelane's mother, the voice of Trelane's mother.
Oh, wow. She also played in the next episode.
Right.
What we do.
Right. Yes. But she was Trelane's mother, Maya 3, Isis, the cat, the voice of the cat.
Oh.
She was the voice of the Beta 5 computer on Assignment Earth.
Wow.
Right? And yeah, we'll see her again soon. So Luskin is like, hey, this is our space. Get the fuck out. But Spock's like, nuh-uh. This was a great phone call. We don't often get to see Spock do this
Being
diplomatic
assertive.
stuff. Yeah.
Well,
like
he hates it. I mean, he doesn't want to be captain, but they're saying that we claim this territory and are prepared to use force to protect our properties.
But Spock's like, really don't care about your property rights right now. We're on a rescue mission, distress call and whatnot. And Luskin's like, that's funny. I don't see any other ships around here. I thought this was a really fun exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Spock explains the situation, asks for a little more time, and Luskin agrees to wait.
So Spock tells them 1 hour and 53 minutes at this point. And Luskin says, well, you better be correct, because if it is not exactly 2 hours and 53 minutes, we're going to shoot. Basically, because we don't tolerate deceit.
Mm-hmm. Get out, colonizers. Get out of my land. Down in sickbay, McCoy, Chapel, and a UC lab assistant are working on the problem with blood samples.
Or whatever that is.
And during this scene, we start to see the lab tech go all naked time on us.
Mm-hmm.
Chapel goes off to run a test on a bottle of blood, and as we're 20 seconds to the next interface, and she comes back to find UC lab assistant about to jump McCoy.
With a metal pipe. He's about to brain him with a metal pipe.
Ding, ding, ding. Star Trek fight?
Sort of.
Let's talk about the definition of a Star Trek fight. Does a punch have to be thrown for this to be a Star Trek fight?
Star Trek struggle. I mean, it was
because
fisticuffs.
They kind of grapple with each other.
Star Trek grapple. Because McCoy turned around just in time to prevent himself from getting brained by a metal pipe, and so they're struggling with each other. And Chapel finally comes over with a hypo spray and knocks him out.
Meanwhile, the time has come to try to beam Kirk back, but Scotty doesn't have anything for the transporter to beam up. Kirk isn't where he should be, and they blame this on the Tholian ship coming in and disturbing the space or whatever. But if we're talking mathematical coordinates here, right, why would we assume that Kirk would have even been standing in the exact same spot?
No.
2 hours and 12 minutes later anyway.
And then this additional ship in their space has thrown off the calculations and
made waves and moved things around.
And it's messing up. It's messing with the interface shit. So,
so Spock has to calculate the next interface and try again. And McCoy calls up with concerns about the naked time happening to the crew. It's spreading. But McCoy has also determined that it isn't something being spread human to human. The cause is the very space we're in. How the hell did he figure that out?
That's what I'm saying, is that he normally takes, he denies.
I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the usual, I don't know what this is until about the end. But he's already figured it out, which, like, good for him.
Good for him.
And I think, again, they just needed to speed this shit along.
Sure.
So he's already determined that it's the space that they're in that's causing everyone to go mad.
It's causing the molecular structure of the brain tissues in the central nervous system to be distorted. And the naked time that happened on the Defiant is definitely happening here soon. We need to get the fuck out of here now.
Right. And McCoy says that, even knowing that they haven't gotten the captain yet, he says they need to get out of here.
Right on time, the Tholians start firing.
They got another problem, yes.
Spock starts tossing orders around. On face, this makes sense, right? Spock is taking a defensive posture.
Right.
Reroute all except emergency maintenance power to the shields, which includes cutting phaser power down to 50%. Very defensive posture.
Right.
And they do get a lick off that knocks the Tholian ship for a loop. But the Tholians got a hit in too.
Yeah.
And you sunk my battleship or whatever. And now the Enterprise is just adrift. And this sets up another McCoy v. Spock battle. McCoy's a dick, right? Spock defends the logic of his decisions, but McCoy's like, you should have known. Bitch, please, this is why you're a stupid old country doctor. Let the bridge crew do the bridge crew work and go back to your doctor's office. Thank you very much.
I know. And Spock tells him that a million times. Why don't you focus on what you need to do, and I'll do that.
There was an old Louisiana boy that I worked with at Disney who taught me the old Louisiana saying, you tend to your plate and I'll tend to mine.
Hell yeah.
Spock basically tells McCoy to go back to work, and then another Tholian arrives. And this is the scene we all know and love, right? This is the Tholian ships like turn back to back and connect together and then start drawing a line between them.
It looks like some type of video game that I've played, like on Atari, like back in the day. But they're also kind of like two spiders, like spinning a web.
Yeah.
And yeah,
it's also kind of a Windows 98 screensaver look.
Totally. Totally.
I probably had that. I used to have, God, I wish I could look it up. I had the Star Trek Encyclopedia.
Oh, yeah?
That was the book that you could buy, the Simon & Schuster or whatever. I had that on CD-ROM.
Oh, wow.
Back in the day.
Nerd. Nerd.
I know. I had some games on floppy disks, too. Anyway, Spock scans this and reveals that this is an energy field of some kind. So if the Tholians are allowed to complete their web, then they'll be trapped inside it.
I think it's interesting to me, and I didn't think about this while I was watching it, but the Tholians could have just fired again.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They just chose to make this long, drawn-out, impending doom.
Right.
Hey, we're going to watch you suffer and freak out, and we're going to make a web around you.
That's a great point.
Why didn't they just shoot? So I didn't think about that at the time, but it would have just...
Yeah.
Does it make any sense?
All of the crew are gathered in that room where they tried to have that wedding, remember? But Spock's Romulan dad showed up.
Yeah.
They're in that room again.
The ceremony room, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I think these are all of the senior officers, and Spock is going to have to stand up there and kind of give them an update on the state of Captain Kirk.
Spock says, friends, we are gathered here today. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today because Jim Kirk is probably dead.
Mm-hmm.
And now here's Ali Ashmead from the Humanist Trek podcast to spit some mad bars.
Rest in peace. But just then, as he's giving his speech about like what's happened and there's a good chance that Kirk is dead, another crewman gets up and just goes haywire. And then he ends up being carried off by 3 security guys.
Everybody settles back down, and Spock's final thought is that each person must evaluate this loss privately in their own thoughts. And this made me think of that, like everyone grieves in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
And so Spock's grief being a very personal, private matter.
He allows everyone else's grief to be a personal, private matter.
Right. And he's kind of encouraging these people to grieve in his own way rather than like go grieve, like
screaming,
get together as a group. And, like it just made me think a lot about that. Everybody grieves in their own way thing.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of have a problem right now that they need to solve.
Right.
So he's basically saying, go grieve in your own way and then get the fuck back to work.
Is Galileo 7 again? We ain't got time to bury him. We gotta go.
We can't dig a hole right now, okay? Exactly.
Scotty calls the room to attention, and they all stand and kind of bow their heads in silence for a few beats, which I thought was an interesting visual choice, until Scotty dismisses them. This made me think of and this quote that we talked about when we did our panel at Galacticon and talked a little bit about like Gene's journey to humanism. This reminded me of how one of the things he had to fight against at the beginning of the original series was that they were the network. They were telling him that you need to have a chaplain. It's like a Navy ship, right? So you have to have a chaplain. And he really pushed back on this because like, who's chaplain? Christians, Muslims, Hindus,
right?
Humanists, Vulcans, Andorians, like who's chaplain?
Yeah.
And so he pushed back on that and won. And that made me think a lot about this scene of like in the 1960s, what a funeral looked like to an American audience and how different this was from that.
Yeah.
No altar call, no like, he's in a better place now, none of that bullshit.
And, now that you said that, it makes me think of like, how a little bit of religion has been sprinkled all throughout the shows that we've watched so far. And I'm wondering if that was just him having to cave to the network and just include it just so that it can appeal to the mainstream.
Right. So everybody leaves the wake and McCoy and Spock.
Because they ain't got a body.
McCoy and Spock battle again. Kirk's final order, should he ever be declared dead, was for McCoy and Spock to go to his room and find the VHS tape Kirk left for them. And Spock's like, come on, Kirk's porn stash can't be that important. I need to be on the bridge, and you, McCoy, need to be tending to the mental and physical state of the crew.
Spock's just still like, this can wait, motherfucker. But he's like, no, you're afraid it's going to change your present status. So anytime McCoy doesn't get what he wants, he just becomes a little nasty.
Yeah.
And that's his way of manipulating. But
so McCoy manipulates. So they go down to Kirk's quarters where the argument continues. McCoy's holding an old medal of Kirk's. And this prop, I had 100 of these when I was a kid.
Where'd you get it from? Outpost? What is it? The trading post?
Intergalactic Trading. No, this one looks like it probably came from Oriental Trading Company.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That catalog of cheap stuff.
Yeah. So McCoy's still harping on Spock, choosing to stay and fight. And Spock explains that the logic was in waiting to determine whether or not Kirk was truly gone, which McCoy seems to understand, but he still blames Spock for everything.
Always.
And he keeps talking about like, as if Spock is making these decisions for selfish purposes. Again, we all know Spock has no interest in command.
Exactly. But this is like the second time that McCoy has accused him of just trying to take over the ship.
Yeah.
But at this point, I don't know if this is McCoy being his annoying self or if he's being affected by the naked time stuff.
Spock punches in the combination to Kirk's in-room safe and removes a floppy disk, and he shoves it into the computer. And Kirk comes on the little view screen and basically tells them to knock it the fuck off.
And play nice, basically. You two get along while I'm gone. And it's basically your parents telling you to stop fighting and get along while I'm gone if you really love me. That kind of thing. And he has a personal message for each one. He says to Bones, help him if you can. But remember who the fuck is in charge.
Right.
And his decisions need to be followed without question. And he tells Spock, you're going to have some really hard decisions to make. And the only advice he can offer him is use every scrap of knowledge and logic that you can to save the ship. So I thought that was kind of cool.
This, to me, is the theme of the whole episode.
Mm-hmm.
He tells Spock, use every scrap of knowledge and logic you have, but temper that judgment with intuitive insight.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the logic of Spock and the emotion of McCoy.
Meet in the middle.
Meet in the middle, right.
If only they could do that.
So they kind of apologize as best they can. And we're back to teamwork makes the dream work, baby. Yeah. But Scotty calls down with some news. He thinks they can estimate the completion time of the Tholian Web. So Spock and McCoy go about their business.
So they show Uhura in her quarters, I think, for the first time. She's got her uniform off and a really pretty dressing gown on. And she's just, as you do in your own quarters.
As you do. I want to talk about the set in this scene. I know we've seen this mirror in the dresser thing before.
I want to say it was Kirk's quarters.
I think so.
Yeah.
But I don't think we ever seen the Lazy Susan of it.
No, that was kind of cool.
That was really cool.
But did you notice? And I know that this was because there was a mirror and they wanted to be accurate. So she moved off to the side and didn't get directly in front of the mirror because they don't. I always wonder how they do mirror shots anyway, even today.
So that you don't get the camera in it and shit. Yeah.
And I just thought that was kind of
today they just edit it out in post.
Right.
She puts on this necklace and doubles over in agony. And when she stands up, she sees Kirk in the mirror.
He's like a little bit transparent. He's in his suit and he looks like he's just floating.
I'm not a horror movie person, but this is a horror movie thing, right? Like you see the red rum or whatever in the what did you say their name 3 times and they climb through your mirror or some shit?
No, that's 5 times. I don't know.
Beetlejuice.
It would have been horror if it had been something other than Kirk.
Right.
But yeah, it was Kirk.
It freaks her the fuck out though.
Yeah.
And she rushes out into the hallway to find Spock, but she bumps into McCoy instead.
Unfortunately.
Who very much does not believe her, orders her to sickbay, and while she insists she's sane, she collapses into his arms.
But she's still calling she's trying to get away from him. It's like, Spock, he's the one I really need to talk to, but she faints.
Down in engineering, another crewman goes all naked time and jumps on Scotty's back. In sickbay, Chapel has determined that what happened to the engineer was definitely because of this interspace problem. And McCoy thinks he's close to the cure, some derivative of Theragen, whatever that is. Chekhov is strapped down to a biobed and freaking out while Uhura lays in her biobed calmly. But she's worried about losing her sanity and becoming like Chekhov. And McCoy's like, no, there's a cure just around the corner. There's a treatment coming, I promise.
Back in engineering, another dude is like propped himself against the wall because he's having a dizzy spell. And Scotty says that we're beginning to interface.
So he thinks it's the interface, but he calls up Spock just to be sure, because she'd always test against your own test results. And Spock's like, no, actually, we're pretty good at the moment. Why? And Scotty turns around and there's semi-transparent Kirk again. And he's like floating on that upper engineering deck.
Yeah.
And just as suddenly disappears. So Scotty's like, I'm never drinking again, laddie.
That was some. Remember when they used to go to the dispensary?
Oh, yeah, right?
Now they go to sick bay.
So Scotty's going to join them on the bridge, and McCoy has just arrived to give Spock some shit again. But this time he catches himself, apologizes, and chalks it up to this interface space shit that they're dealing with. But then McCoy passes out as Scotty arrives on the bridge, and now Kirk's semi-transparent image appears before them. No denying this, Spock. Seeing is believing.
Yeah, so it's funny though. So when McCoy first came to the bridge, Spock was talking to Scotty, and Scotty said on the intercom, the tannoy system, hey, I've just seen Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
And right then, McCoy could have said, hey, By the way, Uhura saw the same thing.
Yeah.
Didn't say shit.
No.
He just chalked it up as everybody seeing what they want to see, which, I mean, I get it, I guess. But I think it's something that should be worth mentioning.
I think, and I'll forget this by the time we get there, this foreshadows the episode of The Next Generation where Geordi and Ro, I think.
Oh, no one can see them. Yes.
And no one can see them, and they're like shoving their hands through the consoles and shit to build up a particle, whatever. Yeah, and Data follows the trail. That's what this reminded me of.
And it's funny because I like that. I in this episode they didn't show Kirk's side of it,
right?
And then in the TNG episode we get to see their side of it when they're trapped out of phase. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Kirk seems to be trying to say or shout something, but we can't hear anything.
I don't know what he was saying. Spock.
Spock, help. And as Spock moves closer to Kirk, Kirk fades away again. Down in sickbay, McCoy takes the very obvious seatbelt restraint off of Uhura's biobed. Great news, Uhura. You're not crazy.
So yeah, she's relieved, and they are about to test the last Theragen potion or antidote or whatever.
So McCoy is going to examine the results of these tests and then heads down to Spock's quarters, where Spock and Scotty are discussing how their phasers ripped a hole in this interface space. Did God knows what to the Defiant, but Kirk somehow remained. And the next interphase will be in about 20 minutes, so it's time to work on another rescue attempt.
McCoy comes in with that tray of
he's got a
orange juice.
He's got a big pitcher of screwdriver.
It looks like it's a vodka and Tang.
Yeah.
You ever mixed anything with Tang? Do they even sell Tang anymore?
I think surely they do.
Old people know what Tang is. But he comes in with a pitcher of Tang.
Oh, yeah, you can get Tang orange drink mix at Target.
Shit, I've not seen it. So he brings it in, and
Scotty's all, hell yeah, laddie, where's the scotch?
What have you got there? And
Scotty throws back this drink and then asks what it is.
I know, right? A true Scotsman. McCoy's like, this is to your good health and the health of the crew. He's found an antidote, and he's ordered it intravenously for everybody else, but he's bringing them a drink.
Apparently.
Oh, and I think it's because they mix it with alcohol, because what it is, Theragen, is actually a Klingon fucking nerve gas.
Right?
Yes.
Shit.
And so they've had to dilute it with alcohol and something else, and that's how it's not killing them.
Scotty's like, will it mix well with scotch? And then he takes the whole pitcher and leaves the room to go find out.
He's so funny. Spock drinks his down with some coaxing from McCoy saying it's the human thing to do. You know, it's not even necessary, man.
Right.
Why you got to be a dick like all the time?
On the bridge, Uhura and Chekhov are back on duty, but there's only 2 minutes left until the Tholian Web is completed. So apparently the plan is to drive the ship into interspace now that they've all been vaccinated against its effects.
Was that what they were waiting for? Like, I guess. This is so whatever.
Chekhov gets to do the countdown.
He's taking Sulu's job.
Chekhov gets to do the countdown, and just after 1, we see Kirk floating on the view screen. But there's a tractor field activating and pulling them back out. Presumably the Tholians, I guess, trying to pull them out of inner space or something. Spock orders full power and the ship rocks, but the Enterprise disappears from inside the Tholian Web and reappears somewhere else.
Yeah.
2.7 parsecs from their previous position, because parsec is a measure of distance, not time.
When I saw that, I meant to look up parsecs. What is a parsec?
It's a measure of distance. And nerds have been fighting about this since the dawn of time.
Oh, 1 parsec is 3.08 meters.
That ain't much.
No. So 2 parsecs is 6 meters? 6 meters is nothing.
Okay, so they moved 6 meters, I guess. I don't know.
So they moved 20 feet.
Okay.
Like, for 20 feet for a ship that big is nothing.
Yeah. But if you're going to transport, is this the question of where is the location of the person that we're transporting now is offset by 26 feet or whatever it was?
I don't
know.
We need a scientist. But yeah.
They needed a scientist.
Yeah.
Kirk materializes and collapses onto the transporter pad as McCoy and Chapel rush to him and welcome him home. Kirk's all smiles on this week's episode of Chair Chat. He talks about how he had that whole universe to himself, but prefers this crowded one better. And he's like, so, how'd you two get on without me? And this was a fun little playful exchange, right?
Yeah.
This is the Chair Chat we all know and love.
Yeah.
Because Spock and McCoy are in step now. Neither of them is going to talk, and despite Kirk's pressure. Kirk's like, no problems at all then? And Spock says, oh, nothing worth reporting. And Kirk's like, try me. And both Spock and McCoy are just, the normal annoyances, when you put a human and a Vulcan together, just the normal stuff. Nothing
not
unusual.
Any human in a Vulcan, McCoy in a Vulcan.
Yeah. During this, there's a great fast cut down to Chekhov and Sulu, and Chekhov just shakes his head like, these fuckers, everything's back to normal.
Yeah. Yep. Like nothing ever happened. Kirk's like, so did you get my note? And
note? What note?
What note?
No.
And it's not like,
oh, the note in your room. No, we didn't have time for that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We were trying to save your life.
Yeah. We were too busy to go break into your in-room safe. What with the interface and the Tholians and all of that happening. Speaking of which, whatever happened to the Tholians? Fuck you, that's what. Off to the next adventure.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm sure glad that's over with.
I'm happy the affair is over.
Me too.
A most annoying, emotional episode.
Yeah, but I learned something today.
When dreams become more important than reality, you give up travel, building, creating.
One jealous god, if all this makes a god.
By sparing your helpless enemy, who surely would have destroyed you, you demonstrated the advanced trait of mercy.
Frankly, I was rather dismayed by your use of the term half-breed. You must admit, it is an unsophisticated expression.
This is going to be a real fast Humanist themes this week.
I agree.
This episode for me was just one more opportunity to put Spock and McCoy in the position of arguing logic versus emotion, with the final conclusion, as usual, being that a healthy mix of the two is generally the right approach.
Yep. It's the can't we all just get along? Rodney King thing, yeah, that's all I had too.
Yeah. This is not a new concept for Star Trek. This is very common. That that is the guiding principle of these three characters, right? Is that think of Kirk with the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, and one of them is logic and one of them is emotion.
Right.
And so that's the roles that Spock and McCoy play in his life, in his career.
Yeah.
But other than that, not
a whole lot.
Not a very compelling.
Not really. I mean,
episode for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I had more, but I'd have to really dig to. But that was pretty much it. And hey, always use protection. I mean, that's the only thing. It doesn't always help, but
hopefully you don't get xenopolychlamydia. Did anybody die in this episode?
I mean, no. I mean, yes and no. The Defiant, they were dead for 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
They were dead for 3 weeks, so I'm not writing an ode to them. So
let's get right to business.
Fine, I'm authorized to pay an equitable price. Federation has invested a great deal of money in our training. They're about due for a small return.
Listen, we pay off percentages. We're entitled to a little service for our money, huh?
Is this the way your citizens do business? Their right of petition?
They pay their percentages and the boss takes care of them.
Is there anything else?
Greetings, mortals and miscellaneous cosmic entities. It is I, the omnipotent and utterly fabulous Q. Now, you may be wondering, why, oh why, should I support Humanist Trek? Well, my dear intergalactic audience, brace yourselves for an answer that will surely transcend your limited understanding of entertainment. Firstly, leaving a review is so pedestrian, but I suppose even you could manage it. Imagine it as a tiny homage to the Q continuum. Next, for those with grander aspirations, consider the exhilarating opportunity to join my illustrious legion of patrons. Yes, you too can be part of something almost as marvelous as moi. Patrons revel in early access, exclusive merchandise that's almost as fabulous as my wardrobe, and bonus content that's, well, let's say, rather entertaining in a mortal sort of way. We have a new being joining this puny collective. Ensign Nigel, a warm welcome is in order, I suppose. Now off you go to enjoy your immortality. We want to thank all our patrons. We especially want to thank our founding admirals. Special thanks to Russell, Allie, Peter, Sarah, and Sherry. Don't be a Q wannabe. Head to patreon.com/humanisttrek and pledge as low as $3 a month. It's practically pocket change for the chance to bask in the reflected glory of my cosmic charisma. Go on, make the wise choice. The universe will thank you. And so will I, of course.
I assume you're loitering around here to learn what efficiency rating I plan to give your cadets.
Trainees, to the briefing room. Is that all you gotta say? What about my performance?
Aren't you dead?
I don't believe this was a fair test of my command abilities. There was no way to win.
There's no correct resolution. It's a test of character.
Now, what is that supposed to mean?
I am understandably curious.
May I ask you a question?
Who's been holding up the damn elevator?
Becca's back now with the answer to our Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge question for the Tholian Web. Remind us the question.
This is the third time that the Enterprise has encountered another Constitution-class starship with the entire crew dead. I will give you a point for each of the other 2 episodes you can name.
And I think we each get a point here with the Omega Glory. Very confident in that answer, but I don't know what the other one is.
Yes.
Okay.
You get a point for the Omega Glory.
Hooray!
The other was the Doomsday Machine.
Was that the one with the Vulcans? No.
I don't fucking know.
Okay,
hang
on.
The USS Constellation is under Matt Decker's command.
Okay, so he went berserk.
He went naked time.
He went naked time. That's what I'm going to call it from now on. He went naked time, and so that was the USS Constellation. So I couldn't remember the name.
So they roll up to his ship and there's nobody on it? Or they're all dead?
They're all dead. Remember, he's the only one alive.
Yeah. Oh, I guess that's right. Okay. All right.
Oh, and I know why. But, so actually, they're not on the ship. He had beamed them down, right?
Oh, beamed them down to the planet.
And he couldn't get them back.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Sorry, Becca. We're having a sidebar here.
Next week, we'll be reviewing Star Trek, the original series, Season 3, Episode 11, Wink of an Eye. Hyper-accelerated aliens, invisible to the naked eye, take over the Enterprise.
Oh, don't remember a single thing about it.
I feel like I remember that much of it, or maybe that was a Next Gen episode where somebody got time phased or something, and like I remember like high speed, like people walking through really fast while you're moving in slow mo.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, I don't know either. What's our question for Wink of an Eye?
This is a good one. Which main character appears in this episode but was not part of any of the filming for it?
What?
So he's in the episode, but he wasn't there for the filming.
Well, it's a he.
Okay, that helps.
Shit.
Yep.
Thanks.
Shit.
I know my answer.
I don't remember.
Do you want me to go first?
Sure, so I can steal your answer.
Okay. So, in a recent episode, and several recent episodes, we've talked about how Jimmy Doohan does voices for like orb beings and energy creatures and computers and shit like that. So I'm going to say Jimmy Doohan.
I agree with that. Because if there's somebody that's going to... Yeah, he's like the voiceover guy.
Yeah. All right, well, we've locked in our answers. If you want to play along, run over to your social media and share this episode. Use the hashtag Starfleet Challenge, and we'll pick out a winner. Next time on Humanist Trek, Star Trek, the original series, Season 3, Episode 11, Wink of an Eye.
Live long and prosper.
Kapla!
Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcasts. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/humanisttrek. Open hailing frequencies to podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com. Humanist Trek is a production of Sarah Austin Media.